Pledge allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I did see those kids. I did see those kids sledding. Yeah, clear off to the right side.
There's a lot of traffic down there. All right, thanks for coming to the meeting. January 3rd, 2025, January 13th, excuse me. Clear Creek Conservancy has nothing to tell us. Floyd Township Fire Department.
Bob Strykowski, 417 Gettysburg. For the whole month of whole year of 2024, we had 370 runs, which is getting up there, more than I've seen. And so far this year, month of January, we're up to 17 already. It's only the 13th. Wow. We're staying busy.
Averaging a little over one a day.
Yep.
Well, if that doesn't tell you something's gotta happen, nothing does. You got anything from the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Neighborhood Watch, Ken?
April would like for me to announce that on Saturday, February 8th, the Neighborhood Watch is having a chili cook-off. The doors open at 5. Please have your spot reserved by January 28th. And if you feel like you've got what it takes to win, please submit. That's it.
HLCS, Rick?
Our newest development is the annual telephone directory has been discontinued, and we still see a need for a business directory because Yellow Pages were quite useful to local people. So we did start up an online business directory, have offered it for free to local or near local advertisers, and there's an online sign-up form. You can find it on the Facebook groups, or you can contact me and I'll send it to you. But people started signing up for that, so it looks like it's going to have a good reception and be a useful tool for the neighborhood. We do plan to publish the red and blue pages that were in that directory, but we'll do that online only. And when that's done and ready, we'll share that, of course, with the community.
Is there any thought about the future as far as a source for telephone numbers of the people that live out here?
Well, no.
Okay.
And we gave that an awful lot of thought before we discontinued the publication. But the truth is the readership and online viewership, much like any other phone book, has just been going down steadily over the last few years. And that's an incredible amount of work to keep the data current and to assemble that. So no, there is no
Okay.
solution for white pages right now.
Okay. Hellnet, Donna?
Makes me sad. I use that directory every day, I think. Donna McGinley, 238 Mill Springs. And I just wanted to mention, we've got one big event coming up, and that's the new, for new residents at Heritage Lake that moved in 2024. And it's called Welcome Aboard. And Nancy Burcham is running that event. And we've had a really good response from the community. We want to thank everyone for their support. The invitations have gone out, and we've gotten quite a few responses, but it's been difficult to identify all the people that have moved in necessarily. We're having to work with the office, and they're already really busy. So if anybody knows anybody that has moved in 2024, you might mention this event to them, and then call Nancy Burcham and let her know so that she can contact them, or they can call her and get on the list, because it's coming up on January 25th from 2 to 4 p.m. And it's just important, we also don't have any of the December move-in information yet. So if you know of anybody that moved in December, please let me know or call Nancy Burcham. Her number is 317-698-5230. Like I said, or you can call me and I'll get in touch with Nancy, but we just want to reach out to as many people as we can. We've had a good response from a lot of the community leaders in the POA to come and meet some of the new people out here, and I think it's a really exciting first-time event to try and get new people out here indoctrinated. We also have brochures, flyers that we've prepared of some of the activities out here that are available to new members, which is really important. Also, we're going to have Rick, I think, is going to be there as well to explain some of the changes without the telephone directory. That's like been my Bible out here as far as, I don't mean to be disrespectful. Anyway, I use it a lot because there's so much information in that, and I want to thank Rick for putting so much effort into it, but I know it will be sorely missed. And so anyway, Rick will be there as well, and to help folks understand how to connect and especially online, because we have a lot of websites and things. So I think this is a good step for a first event, and then we'll take notes and input from everybody after it's over and make improvements for the next one we have. After that, we have a couple of things going on that we may be involved with, but after that, the next thing is the Easter egg hunt in April this year. So Easter is coming really late, so and if anybody's interested in joining, becoming a member of HELNAC, we're always interested in having new people, new interest, because it is a lot of work to put on a lot of these events, but it's a labor of love. So you're always welcome to call or attend one of our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Security call report.
Tom Sutherland, Chief Deputy, Putnam County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for having us. Couple highlights. So we were up here on 30 runs, 30 calls. First service, the two biggest calls we were up here for was lockouts or public assistance and fraud. You had 4 of your residents complain of being fraudulent. I don't remember exactly what they were, but so those were the two biggest runs. But the thing I want to highlight is we put out a message to our merit deputies about the complaints of speeding, and I'll let you know that between 7 and 8 different merit deputies were up here. Actually, there was more than that up here, but between 7 and 8 made a total of 37 traffic stops around the lake this past month.
Yeah, good deal.
Reviewing the traffic stops, I don't believe anybody was ticketed yet. Most of them were given warnings or verbal warnings. So I don't know if you hear your residents complaining about us being up here, but our deputies listened to what we had to say, and I know they've already been up here starting this month.
Thank you very
making some
much.
Traffic stops, so.
Appreciate
The
it.
only ones complaining are the ones that got pulled over.
Sure.
Actually,
That's the
they're
way
not-
it goes. That's the way it goes.
Tom, I'll tell you that I haven't seen anybody complain about being pulled over because they'll probably get landblasted for being the one speeding.
Right.
One thing I had always found when I would watch it, the people that would complain about the speeders, they are the ones that I stopped. So so I haven't heard anybody complain, and I've seen Levi up here a lot, so we thank you for that.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And I'm glad nobody's complaining, because that means hopefully our deputies are being professional to your residents when they make the stops. But if you ever have an issue, you know how to get a hold of me, and we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
Thank you.
You mind if I go home and visit my family? Well, have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation of agenda, everybody okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion to accept the December 9th board meeting minutes and the December 30th operations meeting minutes, which we didn't have.
I moved to accept the minutes in the vote meetings as submitted.
Second. All those in favor? Thank you. Treasurer's report, Mr. Barrow.
All right, Treasury report. Net income, total income for the month of December was $80,428.
Total expenses were $148,440 for a negative net income for the month of $68,000, which is seasonal. The same month last year was almost $50,000 negative, so it's just the time of the year. We're on the other side of the downhill slide, so we should see some revenue start coming in.
The biggest portion of that 68 is our insurance for the following year is due before the end of the year. So, and that was like 40 grand or something like that. So.
That means the total total income for the year, $1,854,378. Expenses, $1,914,563 for a negative net income for the year of $60,184. Our cash position at the end of the year, current cash was $72,731. We have investments of $220,076 for total cash available at the end of the year of $292,806.
Thank you. And we have 2 new parking lots.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Committee reports. A&E, Dennis?
There are no A&E projects approved for the month because they didn't meet during the month because of the holidays. The next meeting is this coming Thursday.
Okay. Campground is no report. No report for the cleanup committee. We have a government. Anything, Rick?
No report.
Lake committee I have, if anybody contradicts my rhetoric up here, by jump in, but I have no report for the lake committee. This time of year, we get very few reports, for obvious reasons. Clean water, there's no report. Long-term planning, no report. We will touch on that committee here as we move forward. Siltation, there's no report. Election, obviously no report. Manager's report, Ken?
Well, that section was real quick. Well, first off, I'd like to, I hope everybody's Christmas was filled with family and happiness, and I also hope your New Year's off to a great beginning. The second paragraph I'm going to save until hopefully somebody will show up before I get finished here. Last month, I recognized several women from the Garden Club that after many years decided to dissolve their official club. While still planning to continue to do their flower duties and stuff like that throughout the community, I failed to mention a member that was, the feelings were hurt that it was a slight mistake on my part. Mary Nice, she has spent a short time on the Garden Club, but long before and after, she has taken care of the flower box at Heritage Drive and Exit 51. Mary has also I've asked her to take care of the employee memorial bench at the marina. So Mary, thank you for your volunteerism, and my apologies for not mentioning you the last month. Our 2024 year-end income for Psalms Haven, our total income lease agreement for this year was $85,732.46. And this amount is $5,641.46 over last year. One of the last things I wanted to say was I believe this will be Paul's last recorded meeting, as he will not be present during the February meeting, the board meeting anyway. I just would like to say it has been a pleasure working with you for the last 8 years, and you have been as part of the board of directors. Your many hours of dedication while sitting in that chair has been nothing but impressive. Thank you for what you have done for the community. Thank you for all you have done for assisting me whenever needed, even if you were just in my way. So at this time, you can kick back and enjoy your spare time, and hope you'll do that. Thanks again for your
Thank
your
you.
dedication. He will be here at the year-end meeting, but I just wanted, this is his last meeting. Well, Andy Beck is not here. He's our newly elected county commissioner. I wanted to introduce you to him because he, at the last commissioner meeting, said he didn't want to be on the agenda, but he just wanted to come and visit our meeting. So this is what I wrote for Andy. I'd like to start by introducing Andy. He is our newly elected commissioner. Andy just attended his first commissioner meeting last Monday. I'd like to extend my appreciation on the fantastic job that I believe his highway department did on the following couple days of our January 5th snowstorm. At 7:15 on Monday morning, I witnessed 2 snowplows working at Heritage Lake, one on Valley Forge and one in Patriots Landing. The following day, I witnessed 2 pickup trucks, one on each side of the lake, hitting all secondary roads and cul-de-sacs. And I understand it's not an easy job making everyone happy, but I wanted to say a job well done for them. So when Andy gets here, you know, on your way out, just please, he lives in our township area. He's going to be our commissioner in this area. He promised to give us attention, and it started out very well. So I just wanted to say thank you to him for that. That's it.
Very impressive condition of our roads through the snowstorms. I mean, they actually plowed cul-de-sacs. I mean, it's just amazing. I've been here 12 years, never saw a truck. I'm like, well, we've never had snow, but it was really nice. The roads around here are much cleaner than they are in Indianapolis, I can tell you that.
You say that. I when I was out and about, I was on Heritage Drive, and there were several places I actually seen asphalt. I went to Bainbridge, and there wasn't a bit of asphalt that I seen from here to Bainbridge. So 36 was in my opinion, was in poor condition, and our Heritage Drive was better than 36. So I thought they did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken. We have no old business. We're moving on to new business. First thing, most of the stuff we're going to bring up tonight is for discussion. We've had a little bit of discussion in some of these areas previously. We've had a lot of discussion in some of our executive meetings where we kind of lay down and everybody tells how they really feel about certain things, and we don't want to bore the public of our community with our swearing and throwing things, so we kind of keep that to ourselves. But we've discussed some of these things in open meetings, mostly in the ops meetings where we plan our board meetings. We're going to bring these things up tonight because, number one, we want to discuss it amongst the board members. And number two, we want the public to be informed that we are discussing and we are getting very close to making certain decisions as a board on some of these issues. They're important issues, and hopefully we're going to hear from the public. We have some different ways we can go on some of these things, so we'll decide which way we're going to go after we discuss some of these things. There is an open forum immediately following these 3 discussions, and that's when, if you want to talk about these issues, you can talk about it then from the audience. In the meantime, we'll keep the discussion among board members. First thing on the agenda is Airbnb discussion. I'm going to start out the discussion with Ken so that he can tell you some of the things that have gone on, the few things that have gone on lately that bring this Airbnb situation to the forefront.
On Christmas Eve, there was one of the Airbnbs that we've had discussion in the past. There was one of the neighbors had posted a concern on Facebook about what was the activity going on next door. So at about, just going off memory, at about 7, 8 o'clock, I think it was, I got up and I went down to the house and I counted 17 cars in the driveway. They were parked in the yard up on the hill. And I sat there for a minute and I just counted. And I thought to myself, I don't think any of us would want to live next door to that. I know I wouldn't. The report came out, they did call the sheriff's department, the report came out that there was loud music. I did not hear any music at all. But just the traffic in and out alone was probably, gotta be annoying. Christmas Eve. I knew that, no, I take that back. It was late because I remember thinking it was probably about 10, 11 o'clock. Because I was thinking to myself, there is probably no kids at that house or they'd be home in bed, at Christmas Eve. So I went home and I called the property owner, lives in Indianapolis. I spoke with him about it, told him what I seen, that it was getting some attention on Facebook. He assured me that which was concerning, that he was not aware that there was going to be that many people, which is a concern. Is because there again, the people that he said that there was 2 people that rented the place, had no idea there was going to be that many people. So, which tells me that they have no control over what's going on after they rent it. Then he texted me back and told me that he's made contact with them and that they're all basically closing up shop and they're going to be heading home. So I got up the next morning, about 10 o'clock, I went by the house again. There were still 15 cars there. So the people that he stated that was going to be leaving, 2 cars went home. So that's what kind of prompted this up again, is that for discussion, how we go about handling it. Because I'm telling you, from what I see, you would not want that next door to you. And if you watch the news at all, you've been seeing in Indianapolis what some of the Airbnbs are bringing out. Guns, trouble, and you cannot tell me that that's just not something waiting to happen. Now, I did look around at a lot of the plates. A lot of the plates I couldn't see the county, but they all were Indiana state plates. So they were somewhere in Indiana. So that's what I see.
Any other thoughts here from the board members?
I have an opinion.
Go ahead.
My opinion is Airbnbs fall under the description of a business, and our covenants have a specific paragraph prohibiting business. I say we enforce that.
But don't you run the risk of, if you do it to one business, why don't you do it to all businesses? I mean, I'm a realtor. I conduct business out of my home. And does that mean I can't do that either?
I think that's a fair concern. I think it would take an attorney to give us an official opinion. But in my view, there's 2 kinds of businesses. One that we don't feel compelled to enforce, and that is a local business that does not bring public and problems with it. And then something like an Airbnb that does. So I think there's a distinction that we could or should be able to get away with.
So I have some thoughts. There's always issues with selective enforcement of covenants or, different things that we're here to enforce. I think Airbnbs, I think they're an issue. But if we tried to go after every Airbnb or every business, I think it would be cost prohibitive. So, you know, we hire an attorney to sue every single business. I don't think that that would make sense financially, and how do we know where the businesses are? So it seems to make sense to me if complaints are brought up to the board, if people have issues with certain businesses, it could be an Airbnb, it could be, you know, somebody's shop in the backyard. If we receive complaints and it's an issue, I think we need to enforce it. Now, I don't think that we should like blame, you know, just go after every business. It'd be so expensive. We'd be spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on attorney's fees. But if we had complaints brought up from anybody, and we verified it, we got more than one complaint, or we went out there and it was a problem, then I think they need to get a letter. I think eventually maybe they need to get sued. I don't know. Depends on the reaction once they get a letter from the board or from the POA or from an attorney. But I don't think it can be just a broad blank, let's attack every business. It's just not feasible.
Yeah,
Then
I
how do
mean,
we know?
Yeah, I mean, some businesses are a lot more intrusive than others.
So if it's a problem, then I say we go after the problem.
Can I play devil's advocate for just a second? Is this the only night that this has been a problem in, let's just say, the last handful of months? I know there's been calls throughout the year, but I'm just saying, like, is it because it was a holiday and they were having a big holiday party and that's the reason? Or this is a every week, all the time, call? Like, because Dennis could have, he has a big long driveway like I do. He could have an IU party and have 17 cars at his house.
Guess what?
No,
He'll probably
couldn't,
talk
because
to you
he
about
couldn't
it.
get that many to vote.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
But he's got some responsibility to the
Touche.
county, or to the community.
I'm saying that, but we're saying that a person rented a house and they had a party in it, which is what I'm gathering, which is not great. And I'm not for this, I'm just playing the other side of the fence here, just saying, do we have much to stand on other than we picked a holiday? It's like going out here on July 4th and being like, you know, you guys shouldn't be shooting off fireworks in your front yard. Or, you know what I mean? I think that, I'm just asking for a timeline of, is this a problem all the time? Is that neighbor constantly being harassed, bothered?
Is it gonna create more problems? That's, I mean, I kinda, going on what Ken had said, maybe all 17 vehicles were from the state of Indiana, but I'm sure in Indianapolis, those Airbnbs are probably Indiana plates too. So,
And they have no ties to the community.
right,
So they could do whatever they want, nobody would know who they were.
exactly.
You know, except maybe the one person who registered the
Absolutely.
Airbnb. You know, if you have a party, you're gonna be responsible for your people.
Yeah, I just.
Well, and a
I'm
party's
just trying to get
different than running a
semblance of,
business.
Like, we haven't heard
Yeah,
anything about
and
this
that's the
since-
issue, it's a business.
Yeah,
We haven't
You
heard
having a
anything about
party's
it
not
since the
business.
summer though,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
Yeah, we have not, that I recall, have had any complaints from that neighbor since the last time that the property owner showed up here.
Okay. I'm just trying to get an idea of how annoying this is for everyone.
And I totally understand what you're saying, but I also put myself in her shoes.
Sure.
And you know, sometimes somebody can overreact to make sure we get the problem go away before it becomes a big problem. And I don't know if that's the case, but I do know that if it was twice a year, I don't know. One of the times that she had complained was obviously that I shared that she looked out and there was a guy urinating next door, and they wanted to know where the lake was at because they were going to go fishing. So I guess if I was in her shoes, if it happened one time next to me, that'd probably be the last time I'd want it to happen.
Well, this is the other issue too. So we're being told of a business and we don't permit businesses here. So if we're told of a business that is a nuisance, I think we need to act.
I just don't know if we should stand on the covenants as a thing, because I think that opens us up to that selective enforcement, right? I
Well,
mean,
it's brought to our attention. So if it's brought to our attention, it's not selective.
I mean, there's 1,700 homes here. We got one complaint about a party during Christmas, right? So I mean, it's not selective. We're,
There's a
if it would have
complaint.
been Dennis's party, we'd still be talking to him as well.
Sure.
So,
Interesting.
I don't
Yeah.
understand the legalese of how all that plays out. I'm just
Yeah.
asking the questions of like, okay, if we go after these people and they decide they're gonna dig their heels in and get lawyers and things like that, like how far are we willing to chase this for the purposes of once or twice, 3 times a year? Yes,
But
I
then
wanna
if
get
we
ahead of it
don't-
before it's a big problem.
If we don't, then.
He'll buy another house and have another
It's gonna
Airbnb.
keep happening, happening, happening.
Interestingly
It's a
enough,
deterrent if we go after them,
Yeah.
it's a deterrent.
I got an email from a friend with this same house, picture of it, said, "Hey Dennis, do you know this place? You know, we're thinking about renting it for a month this summer." And I said, "Yeah, it's a nice house, nice location, etc." I said, "But you do realize you can't use the lake, you can't have a boat, you can't use the pool, you can't use the playgrounds, you can't use any of the amenities." "Oh, I didn't know that." Well, that's clearly important to us. Now, I looked at the ad, and it didn't say they could use that stuff.
But it
The
didn't
ad
say they
didn't,
couldn't.
but whoever's renting is just kind of assuming that they can use that stuff. So,
Well, if you're
We need
renting,
to hire
if you're
an
renting an
executive to be a
Airbnb at Heritage Lake, you're renting an Airbnb at Heritage Lake. You're not renting you're not renting a house at Coatesville. You're renting a house at Heritage Lake. And I agree that we need to address it. I think some of the other things that we need to just remember about this, there are communities that are doing away with Airbnbs for preventative maintenance of their communities. These people don't reside here. Why are they not meeting at one of their houses? You know, I don't know. They're not part of the community, so that's an issue. If I'm gonna have a party, I had a party last summer. We had maybe 40 cars. I told every neighbor around me that I was having a party and I invited them to the party. And that's what you normally do. If you're having a graduation party at your house, you usually invite your neighbors, because you're gonna have cars all over the place. They're not gonna do that in an Airbnb. I agree, I think we need to be thoughtful about a letter that's going out to them. Number one, you're a business, we don't allow businesses. And if they wanna sue us for saying that, come at us. These are my opinions. And I'm just discussing it just like you're all discussing it. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna get serious now. I'm opposed to short-term rentals for a day, maybe for 2 days, because what we like about this place is we like having good neighbors. And if I had, and where I live, on my whole street, I have all good neighbors. If I was to start leasing or renting my house out as a short-term rental, then my neighbors no longer could guarantee that they have good neighbors. My wife and I are good neighbors. So we'd be gone and we'd be replaced by people who come and go and nobody would know them. And that's not what the intent of our community is. So just, all the talk that you guys have about legalese and all this, the board member, this board member, and I think all of you, we represent the community as a whole, not any individual as an individual. So Heritage Lake Property Owners Association is harmed by the proliferation of short-term rentals. It makes our community a weaker community, more of a commercial community, not a living, neighborly community. That's why I'm against them, okay? Just whether it's legal or not, we can get to that later. So, one example of a short-term rental going bad, made the Indianapolis Star, it made all kinds of news. I think it even made national news was when A.J. Hammond's house, which was in the northern part of Indianapolis, a very exclusive neighborhood, his house was worth millions of dollars. And he had one ugly time when he had a short-term rental. It went in and it was a big party there and it was a mess. And he lost his property over this. It became a big deal. It only takes one bad time for a short-term rental to impact our community in a negative way. So I would like to see that we discuss the difference between short-term rentals and normal rentals. And maybe short-term rentals could work if we could control them, whereas we have a time limit on it, like you can't have a short-term rental for a certain period of time. Maybe it has to be maybe 2 months or something, or a month, but that would eliminate these individual weekend or weekly events. So then you get people that are more stable living in those houses for a short term. 2 months, 1 month, that's something up for discussion. But we have a time frame on it. So we can say short-term rentals we'll look at that and we'll allow that. Then here's the conditions that short-term rentals have to have. You have to have approval of everyone would be approved by maybe the board or a committee or something like that, but whereby we would know where they were, and anybody in violation of that then would be in violation of our rules. So I think we could have short-term rentals if we determine how long they are. So I would recommend that we discuss that. How long would they be? If they're, maybe we agree that they could be 5 days. I don't know, but we ought to talk about, if you have a short-term rental, what would be the conditions of allowing? And then versus rentals, like a rental, anything a year or more could be called a rental, that that you just tell us you're renting and that's it, because you have neighbors in. But short-term rentals and these Airbnbs where people come and go, well, that commercializes our community. That's why I'm against it. Now, it may harm people. There may be people say, I bought this house for that. Well, I don't represent you as a board member. I represent the community.
I think the point you just brought up, that somebody right now can buy a house out here because for that purpose. They bought a house because they saw a market, just like builders from Indianapolis saw a market to build homes out here. This is what people are buying a property for a short-term rental because they're seeing a market. They're seeing a place where they can make some money, and then they can come out on a nice weekend and enjoy our lake as a member. But in the meantime, while they're home in Indianapolis, Brownsburg, Terre Haute, or wherever they are, they can make money with that house. I don't see anything wrong with that. That's a nice aspiration. That's a capitalist at heart. However, we have to establish some rule, because if it's like the boats. We got boats out here that people don't like, but there's no rule that says they can't have them. So we have to put up with them. And people can go out and buy a $200,000 boat that create these big waves because there's no rule that says they can't. Well, if we don't have a rule, or we don't have an objection to somebody buying Airbnbs, there's really no stopping them. I mean, an investor all over these towns, Brownsburg, Indianapolis, Carmel, you name it, investors have saturated those areas buying rental homes. If they find out how much they can make on Airbnbs, and there are people out there that have companies that handle Airbnbs now. They handle them for, like if I want to have an Airbnb, I can call them up, and for 10%, they'll handle my Airbnbs. Well, you can make a whole lot more money with an Airbnb than you can with a rental property, because you're renting them out for 3 days, and then 4 days, and then 5 days, and you charge $300 a night. So I think as a community, we're going to have to address we have to put something into effect so that nobody is going to make an investment for that purpose. And, you know, if we make a rule, or we stand behind our covenants, then maybe because this person bought this house for that purpose, he's grandfathered in, but there's gonna be no more. You know, that's my opinion about it, because I don't wanna see people buy a boat that they can't use on the lake. This is happening right now in Cordray, Lake Cordray. They're starting to make new rules about boats on Lake Cordray. But you got guys that are already bought the boats, but they already had the rules in effect that you couldn't have that boat. And now the boat buyers or the new tenants, the new owners are complaining because they already bought their boat. Well, they didn't read the rules. That's why if we have a rule in effect and you buy a house for an Airbnb and our rules say you can't do that, then it's your fault for buying that house. And we can prohibit it. So those are things to keep in mind. I don't think we're gonna come to a solution tonight, but I think we need to put this out to the community. I think we need to hear what everybody thinks. Thank you for your input. Anybody else?
Probably the only thing that got under my skin just a little bit as far as this December 24th ordeal was that, and AJ, I'll kind of use your daughter as an example. You know, my heart softens a little bit at New Year, you know, Christmas Eve. Hope everybody else's does. You've got a child, believes in Santa Claus, wants to go to bed, get him to bed so you can put the stuff together and get it, you know, ready for the next morning. And you got a blaring party next to you. You've got traffic in and out. What do they want to do? Beep, beep, when they're leaving, you know. They're screaming out the windows, hey, they're drunk, you know. I don't want that in the neighborhood for people that has got children. If they don't rent it the whole year, I could care less. Out of all times, on Christmas Eve, at 11 o'clock, they had 17 cars in the driveway partying away. I sat out there, and I wanted so bad to go up there. But there was somebody that come out on the balcony and just watched me. Now, I wasn't in the mood to go to jail on Christmas Eve. So I knew that if I'd have addressed the situation, they were probably drinking, an altercation would have probably taken place. So I chose to count the cars and leave. So that's the only thing I've got to say is that I don't care if they do it all year long. We don't have time to babysit it. And I sure the hell don't want that for a neighbor that may be trying to entertain some family, got your grandkids over, and that is going on next door.
Well, on that specific neighbor that lodged the complaint on that event, she contacted me, and I couldn't go. So I think I said something to Ken, who did go check it out. But I happen to know that she has her own medical issues akin to PTSD. And she had, next day, serious regrets for saying anything to anybody, because as those people were leaving, they drove through her yard, they flipped her off and cussed at her. You know, people shouldn't have to put up with that stuff.
Okay. Food for thought. We'll, if it's okay with you guys, we can touch on this under old business A for the February meeting. And just to see if there's any new information, we'll have the minutes in front of us on the discussion we've had tonight, so that we don't repeat ourselves every time we get together. We've already heard some good comments and some realities on pros and cons for this type of thing. So that will be old business A for February. Okay, did you want to say something about Andy while he's here?
Oh, Andy, I'd like to introduce Andy Beck. He was the one I spoke about a little bit ago. Andy, while you were gone, I held the paragraph off. I wanted to personally thank you for the job that your county highway department did out here after the snowstorm and the day after, taking care of all the side roads. It was quite the nice sight to see, and I just wanted to introduce you as the new commissioner in town, and thank you very much, Andy.
My number's in the book, if anybody wants to call.
Okay, second on the new business is the hunting discussion. The general rule about hunting. My name's on this thing, but I think Ken ought to start this one out.
Just to kind of refresh my memory that Benny was a little bit more involved with it. We had a complaint of somebody that was hunting on Heritage Lake property. We looked up in the rules, there's nothing that says you can't.
Private property.
Private property. It just states that you can't hunt on common property, on the water, and on the shoreline. But it doesn't state anything about not hunting firearms or bow. So I know we had some discussion about changing the verbiage in our rules about hunting. I know that I had a specific request to even eliminate archery practice in your own yard, and to remove any stands for target practicing, because I truly believe you allow it to stay there. You're gonna hear, though I didn't know it, they'll continue to use it. So if you just eliminate the opportunity of somebody getting injured, I think that's my request on it. I know we had talked about some of the verbiage on how to word it. I don't really care how it's worded, but I just think that it needs to be eliminated to include private property or.
So I think the best thing to do at this point is to maybe have somebody from the board or two members from the board champion this verbiage, champion this idea of putting we have to do something. It doesn't matter if you're shooting arrows, you're shooting a gun into the hay, whatever you're doing, somebody could get hurt. It's ridiculous in a community like ours to not have something that we can put teeth into. So I would like to, and it might be a good idea if you don't want to be a part of this, well, if you don't want to handle it yourself, you should probably be a part of it with your position with the county as far as the laws are concerned. I think the verbiage just needs to be direct and needs to involve safety. And we have to put something together. We don't have anything. You can pretty much go in your backyard and target practice because we don't have anything. I mean, obviously, there are some ordinances in Putnam County that could get you into trouble if you're doing that. But I think as a community, we should step our restrictions up a little bit. That's my opinion. Yeah.
So my question is, as the rules are now, if I saw an 8-point buck in the back of my yard, between my house and the lake, in the back of my yard, during hunting season, I could shoot my 12-gauge shotgun with a slug and that'd be legal to have to
I don't
get
think
that
it's
deer.
not legal,
Okay.
but there's no Heritage Lake rule against it.
Okay.
Yeah, I
You
think with,
could be criminally liable for
You
that.
could
Why-
be-
why?
You could be criminally
If I had a
negligent.
hunting license?
Criminal recklessness.
Oh, but,
Because you're in a neighborhood.
mhm.
And if you're going to somebody's farm and hunting on that farm, you're not, you've got permission to be on the farm. If it's your
Right,
farm,
right.
you can do it.
Right.
If you're in a neighborhood, it's no different than
that's-
being in
yeah.
Indianapolis and seeing a deer.
And so that's my point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous to do that.
Correct.
So we need a rule
Correct.
to support that ridiculousness, is what I'm
Exactly.
saying. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's, my point is.
I mean, one time in my life, I was going out west, and you probably know where I was going, but I was going on a motorcycle, and I called a friend of mine who knew all the laws through all these states and said, can I carry a gun with me? And he said, yeah, you can. In that particular state, you can have a gun. I said, but that particular state lets you carry it and show it. And I said, well, okay, I'm probably not gonna do that. But he said, well, you won't get arrested for carrying your gun and showing it. You'll get arrested for being stupid. Because there's gonna be 500,000 people there, and if you're gonna carry a gun on the outside, it's just like that, that's
Yeah.
the
I got
whole
you.
deal.
Yeah, okay.
But I think as a community, we need to make it obvious that we are
Yeah.
protecting kids, other adults. You're shooting an arrow in a community or what have you. And some of the houses in our community, let's face it, you don't have anything in the back of it. You know, there's a farm in the back of it, but it's not your farm. And there might be a kid walking by that farm. So,
Yeah,
Let me give you this example that happened probably 3 to 5 years ago. Probably should have been addressed back then.
yeah.
I had a new guy working for me on the department, and a call came out in Mill Springs of somebody shot a deer in the front yard. I was out in my garage working, and the officer called me. I told her, just give him direction on how to handle it. And the more I sat there, the more fueled I got. And I thought, hell no. So I jumped in my car and I went over there. Conservation officer was called. He shows up. He's wore out. It was opening day. And he wasn't going to do anything about it. My exact words to him was, you either file charges against him or I will. He shot a 10-point buck in his front yard. No, I back up. In his neighbor's front yard with a home right on the other side of that deer that had 3 kids in it. So we confiscated the deer, confiscated his gun, and filed charges against him. My point is, that's how dangerous it got 3 to 5 years ago. This guy was hunting, but he was hunting, I think Benny went and addressed it, and he informed Benny that he's not breaking any rules.
You knew the rules.
He knew the rules, stated he could do it. I mean, didn't state he couldn't do it. So, I think I'd rather be shot with a slug than an arrow, just me. You know, I've stated privately that I've mowed my grass and I've had neighbors shooting arrows. It's just reached a point where I think we gotta stop it. Somebody's gonna get hurt. And, like I said this morning, not on my watch. So I would like to see it eliminated at Heritage Lake at all. Firearms, hunting, target practice, you name it. They just cannot do it. It's just my 2 cents.
Okay, so to move forward on this, and we expect maybe some involvement from the community members. At this point, I think because of your background and because you guys deal with this stuff on a regular basis, I think you ought to come up with a format what you think this thing ought to read, and then bring that to the board and let the board discuss it, and by that time, maybe the community will have some thoughts about it also, because you're one-on-one with these people. You know what's happened in the past, you know what we need to do in the future, so why don't we do that?
We can do that.
All right, so this will be old business B, and we'll have hopefully the first draft on a general rule for eliminating target practice and hunting at Heritage Lake Community. Okay, moving on to the third item. This is just a discussion, and I wanted to get the board's opinion on this. We've talked about it, Rick and I have talked about it briefly, talked about it with Ken. Long-term planning is a community committee that has been developed for the purpose of long-term planning. And it's, we have also recently started another committee out here, the Heritage Lake Community Foundation, which is a non-for-profit committee out here that can raise money to help us with some long-term planning. And as you all know, we have submitted a complaint to the courts about changing our covenants on voting. And if in fact that gets approved by the courts, we will have a new voting system out at Heritage Lake. And we will hopefully, between these two committees, be able to come up with substantial items that may be important enough for the community to vote on. And there's no limit to those. It's just a vetting process, if you will. Just like we have an A&E committee that vets all of the planning that goes on at Heritage Lake. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because we've talked about merging those two committees. And I think in the future, because of how we've set up our voting system and some of the discussions we've had in the community about different things that are important to our members, in the future, some of these items can be vetted, some of these items can be researched, some of these items can be discussion at board meetings, at forum meetings, and so on. And then the bottom line is, this committee could handle those items and further vet them, further research them, and bring them to the board for approval before they go to the committee. In other words, you just don't send out a voting problem like, we want the community to vote on sheds, yes or no. That ain't gonna work. We have to have it specific. We have to have reasons why we're coming to the community. We have to figure out a way to bring something to the community that is viable for all members. We have to give them reasons why we're bringing it to the community. We want to have a path around the entire Heritage Lake for walking or riding your bike. We have to research that. We have to come up with figures. How are we going to pay for it? Why are we doing it? And I won't exclude in the future assessments. You know, if this community has a reason to improve, to increase assessments, then they ought to come up with a reason, not just we want to increase the assessments. So, and I throw that out because it's always thrown to me. Okay, there is no structure right now to raise assessments. And I don't see a reason in the very near future, or even in the long-term future, why we have to, because of the way we've structured everything. However, if in fact that comes to play with a future board, you have to come up with reasons why. And maybe it'll make sense, and maybe it won't. And then all the people in the community can vote one way or the other. So that's why I have proposed that we merge these two committees, the long-term planning and the foundation committee. So I'm just throwing that out there and open for discussion. You may begin if you'd like.
On the surface, it feels like or sounds like a reasonable fit. My only concern, and I need to bring this up with the next meeting of the community foundation, is to see how they feel about it. But I can tell you, we're having discussions right now in the foundation about fundraising for a couple different Heritage Lake projects. One of them I can tell you is very large, the other one not so large. But the whole idea behind the foundation is to have a foundation that donations can be collected through individual donations, business donations, or grants. And however you collect money, they are, because it's a 501c3, they are tax deductible. The idea actually came up in a conversation between me and Paul when he learned the number and quality of community residents that are on the board of this foundation. They're very good people. They're all your neighbors, and it's an enviable group of people. Unlike the long-term planning committee, is desperate for people. And as Paul said, if the complaint is decided in our favor, then the long-term planning is going to be pivotal, incredibly important to manage that process that comes after the complaint is decided. So it sounds like a good fit. I think the first step is to have the same discussion with the foundation to see how they feel about it. But given that they are talking about Heritage Lake projects and funding those, it might be a good fit.
The other thing that we talked about also is one of the strongest committees out here as far as responsibility is the A&E committee, the Architectural and Environmental Committee that approves any type of construction on Heritage Lake. And obviously, it's a very important meeting, or a very important committee. That committee is one of the few committees that has to be approved by the board. If a member wants to be on the A&E committee, they have to sit in 3 meetings. They have to be approved by the A&E committee, and then their nomination has to be brought to the board, and we approve or disapprove that nomination. It's a vetting process, basically. The reason for that vetting process is so that we put people on those committees that have shown responsibility to those committees, have shown integrity for those committees. If we merge these two committees under the circumstances that we look at for the future, I think that has to be one of the highest vetted committee for new members. So new members will come and find out what the committee is all about. If they sit in a number of meetings and they were approved by the original founders of that particular committee, their name will be brought to the board again, and reasons why they are approved by that committee or any other situation, so that the board in front of the community vets these people, so that a community member has a right to say, hey, I don't want this guy involved in long-term planning, and here's why. And we weigh that. So, those are the things that I think are important in that particular type of a committee. Volunteering is very special. But volunteering on a very important committee is a big responsibility. And I don't think it should be taken lightly. Someone told me one time, I said, I'm just a volunteer. He said, I don't care. If you decide to be a volunteer, you've taken on a responsibility. It doesn't matter that you don't get paid, right? Any other comments about this? from any of the board members?
Has this been discussed with Summer at any length?
No. Not that I know.
I got a question.
Yeah,
What would be the disadvantages of doing this? Okay, so I'm asking that of everyone. If you think about putting those two together for why wouldn't we? What's one or two or three points that would say, well, this is the reason we can't do that?
I personally don't know of any reason. And the reason we're bringing it up is because it is a fit. It's a natural fit. And like Rick said, I think each committee should see and maybe somebody in each of those committees might come up with a reason why we shouldn't do it. I don't foresee that, but it might happen, who knows?
It seems to me that it makes a lot more sense than starting from scratch, because you've already got some key leadership that's vested in the community, looking out for the best interest of the community to kind of start this thing, as opposed to, there again, if you start from scratch, a lot of the good leadership's already committed to other committees, so it'd be a good.
And Rick brought up a good point when we had this discussion outside of the board meeting, is that, there has to be a new mission statement. And it has to be a good, solid mission statement for this board. And he even talked about that, about the foundation committee, when he first developed it, that they needed to have a structured mission statement. And I think the members of that committee would come up with some ideas, and that could be brought to the board, and the board might have some ideas about it.
Because it could be viewed easily as the most important committee out here,
Absolutely.
as it kind of takes over. And this committee will truly be the liaison between the community and the board.
Well, when you look at long-term planning, you say, well, people on that committee could come up with some pretty neat ideas, but cost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, by combining these two, not only do you have people coming up with pretty good ideas, you got them, they're in step with how can we pay for this? And one of the opportunities that the public doesn't know we're missing is the grant opportunity that's out there within our state to get some big money, if we had people who would know how to approach that.
Correct.
Now, we do have people that's smart, intelligent, and skilled. We just haven't had opportunity to approach the asking of a grant, because we had no idea of what you would do. You're not going to get a grant and say, hey, give us $500,000, we're going to come up for an idea. It's the other way around. You got to have the idea, and then you got to ask permission for this money, and it's out there. So that's why I asked that question. I think if we cannot come up with an idea why we can't do it, then what I call this is a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
It just is one of those things where you're going to have to convince the HLCF, but yeah,
Do you
as
have
far as I'm
any
concerned, it's a no-brainer.
between now and?
Yeah, we have our monthly meeting is actually tomorrow.
Okay. So we'll, unless anybody else has anything more to add, we'll go ahead and put this as old business C for discussion, and Rick will come back to us with their thoughts on this, keeping in mind that it might be the beginning of them coming up with ideas for the mission statement, and bring that to the board, and maybe we can elaborate on that next meeting.
What do you need a mission statement for? This commit, long-term plan?
For the whatever the committee is gonna be called,
Okay.
merging these two, I think it has to have a good,
Oh,
solid
yeah,
mission
yeah.
statement.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I just didn't know if you were talking about which one. Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on this, or we'll move along?
Do we need the community foundation to still be called the community foundation for all the 501, whatever you're talking about?
Well, yeah, it is legally incorporated as a private foundation. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, and if we're gonna combine the two, it can still be called that.
Operationally, what you do with them, I think, is what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Next, we have open forum. Anybody have anything? Dwayne?
Dwayne Kelly, 282 Patriots Landing. On the hunting, I just wanted to say, the Conservancy have a meeting Thursday morning. We have property that back up against homeowners' properties, so it will be discussed. I'm sure that the Conservancy will take a look at whatever terminology you guys use, and we'll try to incorporate it to where our property, because I'm sure we have nothing in place now, and we have some property that's probably pretty good hunting property down there, the hill there, you know. So I can just assure you that I know the other two board members very well, and we'll work on that too.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Rich Balls, 259 Jefferson Valley. First of all, on the Airbnbs, this board has kicked the can kind of down the road for a whole, a year off and on. You bring it up, you don't talk about it. Problems come up, you guys talk about it again. Then you said something about grandfather or something in. Wait a minute. It's against the covenants. How do you grandfather something in that when they bought was already against the covenants? Pretty simple. You can't, I don't see how you can do it, because somebody explained that to me first, how you could grandfather something in that was against the covenants from the beginning.
We're discussing it, just like you're discussing it.
Well, you guys said, well, maybe we can grandfather the other ones in. I'm asking,
No, I used the word grandfather when I was talking about boats and the rule about boats. I used the word grandfather. I also equated that to if, in fact, we made a rule or a specific covenants about Airbnbs, and he bought that house as an Airbnb, that it could be grandfathered in. That was just a discussion.
okay,
That is not a law. That is not something that's gonna be, it's just a part of the discussion.
I understand, and what I'm asking then is, how do you grandfather something in that's been against the covenant since the 70s? That when they bought it, it was against the covenants. You can't have a business out here. So I'm asking, how would you grandfather it in? I'm asking, can somebody tell me, how could you grandfather something in?
Well, then we'll just forget about that thought then, because you brought up a good point. We can't grandfather it in.
I didn't know.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Second, on the hunting, but you got, it's against the law to hunt in the neighborhood, right?
It would definitely be criminal recklessness if you shot a deadly weapon anywhere towards somebody's house or.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, I've hunted my whole life, and I think there's a footage how far you gotta be away from a house to hunt.
It doesn't really have other, as far as Indiana statute, there's not like a real number to that. It's kind of an interpretation, but anywhere, if you would shoot anywhere around here, it would be
Yeah.
criminal recklessness,
Right,
certainly.
and why I was asking that is, which I understand putting in the rule, I mean, it's good sense, but somebody with a gun or crossbow, we've even talked about, said, hey, you should know how to do it anyway.
Richard, you would think so,
You
but
can drive around and see people target practicing in their backyard every day, especially with bow and arrows.
No backstop.
And that's where.
No backstops.
Yeah, and I understand, and I really do. So what would you put in the rule that the law already says it's illegal? What would you put in the rule to stop it? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
What would you suggest we do as a
I don't know,
community?
that's why I'm asking, because when I tried to bring up about child molesters stuff down there, Rick said, hey, it's already against the law for him being down here, we don't need to put something in. So I'm asking, on the basis, it's already against the law. I hope you do put something in, but what would it be?
Don't know yet. That's why we're discussing it.
Okay, all right. On the long-term planning thing, all right, don't get mad at me right now, listen to me all the way.
You know it's good when you have to
In my
preface.
heart,
Yeah.
I knew in my heart, this was about raising dues, and that's okay, because I see that there's a good point to be able to do that, if you do it. If you say, hey, because I mean, there's a fee for everything out here. So if you bring in fee for, everybody can put a boat on there, everybody can go to the pool, and put the whole thing into the fee for a 1 year, then I can see a good reason to raise it then, not just to, vote just to raise it, but include them all. Then you got a reason, you're including the pool, your boat, and then it's spread out amongst all of us. So, I mean, and that's not just how I'm looking at that, I just had my feeling in my heart that this is what it's about, and that's okay, I just want it to be said, hey.
So you think we should have one fee out there for everybody to pay, and they can use their boat for free, they can use the pool for free, they can use the beaches for free, they already use the beaches for free. But you think the best thing to do out here would be give, everybody has one price to pay, and it supports everything.
Then it's divided amongst the whole community, and it's not for free,
That's how the covenants was designed.
and it's not for free.
That's how the covenants was designed.
Well, what happened? I mean.
What happened? We can't raise the price. We can't raise the price because the covenant tells us we can't raise the price. So they had to put in boating fees, because the price of that the covenants lets us charge everybody for assessments covers less than 50% of what we need. Okay? So we started raising fees or developing fees so that this community can progress.
Okay.
All right? So what you're suggesting is that there's one fee for everybody.
And then we take out the covenants is where it says you can charge a fee for, because it does say because you can charge a fee, a reasonable fee for the pool and stuff. That has to be took out of the covenants to, and I'll stand behind the whole place like this. We have one fee,
Okay?
because
Okay.
I hate going.
So I pay, right now, just me,
Mhm.
okay? I pay, about $800 for my boats,
Mhm.
okay? I pay, let's just call it $200 for my assessment. So that's $1,000, okay, each year, okay? What else do I pay? What else do I pay for?
You got a pool pass?
Oh, I have a pool pass. Yeah, how much is that? How much is a pool pass?
I think it's 120 a
Yeah,
year.
okay. So I'm up to $1,100,
Yeah.
okay? So I'm okay with everybody in the community paying $1,100 a year
Per lot.
Don't
Per
have to
lot.
pay, don't have to pay
Per lot.
1,100.
per lot.
I understand what you're saying, but you don't have to pay 1,100.
Why?
How many
Oh.
boats, how many boats sign up for the
He's saying
lake?
because you'd spread the load, so instead of 1,200 people paying 100 or whatever
Okay.
the sticker is, $300 a piece, if you spread it out over every single lot,
Okay.
you wouldn't be paying 300 per sticker, you'd be paying, or 300 per boat, you'd be
That's a
paying,
good idea. I think
know.
you ought to be in charge of coming up with a new assessment for the community.
I think it's a great idea,
Yeah.
but I think you'd be hard pressed to get everybody that's not on the lake to go along with it.
Well, what I'm saying is though, that's just how I felt like this is why it was being done for, and
Well-
that's how I felt, but I could be wrong, could be right, I don't know
Well,
actually.
you feel that way about everything.
Well, okay, all right.
You always feel that way. I mean, everybody knows that. Let's call a
And it's
spade a
okay.
spade. Every time there's an issue, you feel like you're getting screwed and we're out to screw you.
Well, I mean, not send people warning letters first and all that. you know.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Why not do that?
Just admit it.
I think it's-
to be fair to him though, this
You-
is
you
actually a
are- you are
fairly,
what you
I mean, this is a
describe
good
yourself.
idea.
A pot stirrer.
Oh, yeah.
You describe yourself as
Yeah,
that.
and I'm even sitting on the thing.
I'm just saying it's not a terrible idea because if it was
It's a great
spread
idea.
out- if it was spread amongst everyone, then no one would feel like they're being slighted. No one would feel like they're being overcharged. Nobody would feel like they're living here for
I'm
super
not so
cheap.
sure but the lake people would be getting a benefit.
People
I
that
think
use the lake. Let's differentiate though. There's not 1,200 boats for lakefront people only.
Right,
There is people that live off the water and on the water that use the lake.
right.
So the same thing with slips, the same thing with boat tie-up, whatever the different, I can't ever remember the difference between the two. The slip and the tie-ups. And the
Just
campground
calls.
fees, and the campground fees and
Yep.
all that sort of stuff. If you balled that all up and took that amount of revenue and divided it by the number of lots we had, plus the assessment that they currently pay, and divide that out, I would be real curious to see what that number is roughly.
How,
you
how,
take- you take
how long
1,200
would it take for you to do that? For like, by next meeting, could you do that? Cause you used to be treasurer. I mean, could you do that for us?
The beast.
You know, I think it's a mathematical
Well,
problem.
that's, yeah, it's
He
not.
could do it.
We know what our operational budget is.
Right.
And for 2025, it's something in
But
the
you-
vicinity of $1.8 million.
So,
Okay.
but I'm just saying that
But-
we
let me
can't do
finish.
a whole budget.
Yeah, but let
Based
me
off
finish.
that.
To cover
That's the
that,
way the covenants,
to cover that
described
operational budget, you
the
could.
assessments. The assessments
divide-
are to take 100% of your budget.
Okay, all right.
Right, so you could take that $1.8 million, divide it by 2,998 lots, and arrive at the number that everybody would have to share equally to do what you're asking. Is that impossible? Was that ever a plan? No, it's not impossible, and no, it was never a plan.
But it'd have to be, with the covenants, will have to be changed in order to do that.
No.
The community'd have to vote for it.
That's right.
Yeah, to raise the fees as much as that would take, and it could be, I can't do the math in my head this fast.
$620.
600 and some dollars, thank you. Okay, so it's not $1,100, but it is 600.
Yeah,
That's significant.
that's
okay?
right.
But really though, if you think about it, I mean, going from 300 to 600, and then anybody can use anything they want.
Yeah.
But if you're on fixed income, maybe just Social Security, that could sting, okay? And we don't, and I don't want to price people out of their property. So while I think it's an interesting, maybe good idea, I'm not sure I'm ready to support it, okay?
Well, it's not ready to support yet. It's just one idea out of many to come, right? So it's one option, but you can give him credit for one.
Somebody that don't live on the water, somebody that doesn't camp.
But you could.
But I could, but if, I would much rather, if you're gonna tell me you're gonna raise my assessments, I'd much rather, let's say you tell me they're gonna be $500 a year. I would rather to be able to choose to pay that $500, and if I don't wanna buy a boat, that's up to me. If I don't wanna go camping, that's up to me.
Then talk about wait lists.
But we got 70 campsites.
And the slip.
What happens if everybody was, all of a sudden you got 150 people now want to go camping because it's free? Now what do you do? All of a sudden, people that can't afford to buy a boat and register it, now they just go out and they buy a boat. Now we just doubled our 1,500 boats to 3,000 boats. Our lake can't substantiate that. So I'm not so sure that that's the best idea.
I think
Well,
this
it's a
is,
nice concept, but you gotta think it through.
I mean, they're paying for the sticker
Right,
one
that's
way or
my
the other.
point. Yeah.
yeah,
kind of.
I think it's something
boat?
for a,
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
if you choose the boat.
but I'm just saying, if the fee goes up $300 and the boat fee's $300 in the old versus the new, we're just throwing an idea at the mud at the wall right now.
Oh, I understand, and I'm just
Just
throwing my
making
mud at
something
the
up.
water too.
And it could be
I
a
just-
blended
That's
choice as
exactly-
well.
could
It
be-
could be for some.
thanks for bringing this up,
amenities
Richard. I'd
project.
like to go have my
Oh, I just say, it could be something where, some amenities, like the pool, like that's a pretty commonly used thing, or, that's included. I mean, I'm just throwing, just like you did, type of thing, so I think it's a
Or if you
very.
incorporated some of this. Is that
Yeah,
what
you
you're
do
saying?
hybrid.
Some
You
of
do
the
some
things.
and not.
It's worth discussing.
Yeah, worth the discussion probably at
Absolutely.
another time.
It's worth
Yeah.
not writing down and discussing it.
Absolutely. And I think what has to be discussed in a committee form first, then a board form second, and then if it has merit, and everybody agrees it has merit, it goes to the community. Because we don't really want to go to the community for just their opinion. We want to go for a movement. We want to go for something we've all thought out, we've all discussed. And if it's discussed in a committee and it's discussed at a board meeting, we're gonna get people coming to the board meeting and saying what they wanna say about that particular idea. And that's what it's all about. It's a form of vetting an idea.
What's a vote cost us nowadays? Like when we do an election vote and we have to mail out all the stuff, what, $3,000-4,000, give or take?
Whatever stamp it is times number of lots.
Yeah.
Well, the solution to that is
And paper,
electronic vote.
time and paper. Time and paper.
We're getting to the point now where if we, probably by the time everything is settled and by the time we come up with an issue, we're gonna be doing electronic voting, period. I mean, that's just, you have to. I mean, the court systems are all electronic. Everything's electronic. And for us to be spending $7,000 when we're gonna get an opinion from the committee, from the members, it's money poorly spent. in my
And
opinion.
time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, amazing amount of effort.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anything else, Richard?
No, you guys, that's great.
Thank you.
I just want to say one quick word. I want to thank you, Paul, for everything you've done for the community. I didn't realize you were leaving the board, but thank you for everything. I think you really run a good meeting. And I'd like to see you steer everybody back to the topics, and we appreciate everything you do. So thank you very much, and I know you're gonna miss it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Tom?
Tom Novak, 25 Mill Springs. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who showed up for the blood drive on January 7th. You know, the old saying, neither snow or rain nor heat nor gloom of night could keep people away, and that was certainly true. By those individuals' dedication, we collected over 37 units of blood. So I'd just like to give those individuals a big hand.
Thank you, Tom. I'll take the motion then.
Now I move to adjourn.
Anybody second? All those in favor? All right. There is no executive meeting at this last meeting.